Are we still buying into struggling all-stars like Mike Trout and William Contreras? And also, do we believe in the amazing months of Brandon Lowe and Max Muncy? We got those players and more on today's action-packed episode of Locked On Fantasy Baseball.
You are Locked On Fantasy Baseball, your daily fantasy baseball podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, fantasy baseball fanatics, and welcome to the Locked On Fantasy Baseball podcast, brought to you by the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. As always, we're your number one source of fantasy baseball knowledge, and thank you for making us your first listen each and every day. I'm your host, Dominic Martino, here as always with my brother, my co-host, my partner in crime, Matthew Ahne. If you're watching on YouTube and you haven't already, hit that little bell below. It's going to subscribe to the channel and give you notification every time we drop a new episode. Or if you're listening on the audio side of things on a platform like Apple or Spotify that allows 5-star ratings and reviews, we would truly appreciate it if you could do that for us as well. And lastly, but what's most important to you guys and Matt and I, give us a chance on the Insider's Track, where you're going to get exclusive access to Matt and I, and we're going to get you the information that you don't get on this podcast. So give us a chance on the Insider's Track. The link is in the bio wherever you're listening, watching, and it's available on any of our social media platforms. And all right, Matt, trade for and away episode, do this once a week. And we got some great names today. Got a bunch of all-stars that have been struggling. We got some guys that have been on fire for the past month. And listen, what are we doing with these names? Matt, I mentioned him at the top. He's been, struggling a little bit, been injured this year, but Mike Trout, man, former number one player in all of fantasy. Matt, do we believe? Are we selling? Are we buying? What are we doing with Mike Trout?
I'm flat out buying on Mike Trout of the Los Angeles Angels playing that outfield. I mean, Mike Trout, literally when he is healthy, he's one of the best players in baseball. I think what we saw in the early weeks of the season where he was absolutely crushing it to open up the gates was what I think we're going to see now, what I think is starting now. Once we started seeing the decrease in playing, we saw the knee, and I think the knee soreness that ultimately put him on the IL kind of hampered his play. But now that he's been back, he's been, took the time he needed to, figure that out, and now is kind of taking that step forward. Over the last week, batting 333, even today, batting 333. Over the last month, batting 317. Like the dude is doing everything right. And then you look under the hood, and this is what kind of like assures and takes away all my fears. The XWOB was actually at a 394 on the season. The expected batting average is actually 278. The expected slug is 581. The average exit velocity is awesome in 92.2 miles an hour. Barreling 16.5% of the time, creating hard contact over 50% of the time. Launch angle is like amazing. Now, look, there's some negatives in terms of the batting average, which I think is going to reflect a little bit more. He is whiffing a little bit more and striking out, but at least he's walking in comparison, so he's not killing you in points leagues. And he's not chasing at these random pitches that, you would expect on a guy that's trying to figure things out. For me, Mike Trout, I think, is going to now just take off. As long as he can stay healthy, as long as that knee can stay intact, he's going to take off. The power is there. We're seeing the average exit velocity. There's nothing that tells me otherwise that, hey, we're in for a bad season. So I'm doing a flat out buy. I actually, in one of Domini's leagues, I actually just bought Mike Trout. Like literally, this is, hey, to the table, something I've done, best practice. This is what I'm doing. I've literally acquired Mike Trout, and I'm trying to acquire him literally everywhere because it's the right move. People are down. People are upset. They think that the knee injury that he experienced last year is now just going to dilute the power. And that's the common consensus amongst stupid, baseball players that aren't patient enough with guys like this. Now, here's the deal. We're just going to go in, trade for Trout, and then you're going to look like an all-star, in a couple of weeks when this dude absolutely takes off. We told you to buy on Salvi Perez. Look what happened. Now I'm telling you to do it with Mike Trout. It's going to be the same thing. It's coming. Just buy in full-heartedly right now.
Yeah, Matt, I'm 100% with you on Trout. I will say this, the supporting cast around there isn't as good as it has been in previous years. Runs and RBIs might be a little bit light. Doesn't really steal bags anymore, but I think he gets that. Yeah, I think he gets that average up to at least 280-ish the rest of the way. The power is legit. He's 35 home run pace every year. So he's going to give you power. He's going to give you average. And I don't, Matt's talking about I traded for him. I'll be honest. I don't think you have to pay a crazy amount. I think you get Trout right now, 75 cents on the dollar or on the season, 229 average. Nothing looks super sexy. I know he's been better of late, but, I don't think everybody isn't as locked in as, somebody as Matt and I and you listening to this podcast, So they might not be paying too much attention, and you might be able to snag Mike Trout out for somebody for, like I said, 75 cents on the dollar. But Matt, great breakdown on Trout. Really don't have too much else to add, except I agree. Go by. Let's talk about William Contreras. I do want to say this, Matt, and I'm going to do a little bit of a victory walk here. We told you guys not to draft William Contreras in the 3rd, 4th round where he was going.
Second.
Yeah, 2nd round in some cases as well. So we warned you guys not to do this, but now is the time to strike, right? Now is the time where you come in for the guy who paid that price, right? And you might be able to get William Contreras on 50 cents on the dollar. I believe in Contreras. He's a very good player. He's been an all-star the last few years since he got over to the Brewers. The power's legit. The batting average, I think, is going to climb back up. Tough start to the season for him here. Listen, we still got a little bit more than half the way to go. I think Contreras is somebody that we could buy in on. Listen, even if you picked up the Herreras, the Hunter Goodmans, you might still just want a little insurance policy. And if you can go out there and get William Contreras for super cheap, I'd go out there and do it. I'm not overpaying. Don't go out there and just rush to acquire him for a lot. But listen, if you can get a guy who was 2nd, 3rd, 4th round pick in most scenarios, for somebody you picked up off the waiver wire, or somebody you took late in the draft, I would go out and do that just because I believe in the player of William Contreras. Like I said, he's got good power. He's going to hit for good batting average. This Brewers team themselves isn't really too bad for fantasy purposes with Yelich and Churio, who I also believe in. We talked about on this episode when we did it last week. So I'd go out there and, like I said, if you can get him for 50, 60 cents on the dollar, I'd go out there and do it. Like I said, I believe in him.
Yeah. No, I mean, I'll buy in on the upside, but I'm definitely doing the uber annoying trade where I'm throwing the lowest ball humanly possible out there for him, because ultimately, like in single catcher, leagues specifically, I can stream that position and get the same kind of production until he gets going. So I will not pay a premium for him whatsoever, even in 2 catcher leagues. I mean, he's performing so bad that he's absolutely crushing you. And I'm just like, okay, cool. Well, I'm going to try and trade a guy I got off the waivers. I'm going to trade like a Goodman or something, and then one of the guys later in the episode to kind of make things a little bit more on the sexier end to try and get him. But I'm not really going to pay a premium because I really don't care. I stream the position most of the time, but to have somebody elite at the position is a difference maker. So hey, look, hopefully if you've drafted in the season, you learned your lesson. Let's leave it at that. But let's move on. So about Dylan Cease, starting pitcher for, I don't even know what team he's on anymore. I'm kidding. San Diego Padres. I'm kidding. So he's struggling this year. He's posted like a 4.69 ERA. Love the last 2 digits. But through the 15 starts, 80 innings pitches, 105 strikeouts with a 1.33 whip. Look, here's the problem, and I can easily identify it. His fastball is super flat, and if you look at last year's fastball percentage and how often he throws that pitch versus the success he's having with it, you can see it directly correlate in the ERA category. So, like for instance, last year he threw his fastball 43% of the time at a batting average of 232. This year he's throwing it at 38% of the time, took that down, is getting hit at a 277 rip. And even the expected batting average isn't looking so hot. It's because it's flat as can be. Like literally, you go to Ed and Eddie, you look at Plank, and there's his fastball. It's just ugly. So Dylan Cease just needs to work on the grip and how to get the movement going, and we can see the Dylan Cease of old. Now, the key parts of why we're saying, hey, I didn't even tell you what I want to do with him. I want to acquire him on the cheap, and the reason being is I promise. So the slider's being effective for 1. 2, he's creating a lot of strikeouts. He still has through 80 innings, 105 strikeouts, so that's key. The whip is going to kill you, but whatever. I mean, there's some seasons where he has an incredible season and he just has a high whip, and sometimes it all clicks. But the strikeouts has just always been there, and I'll take that. I'll take the high whip to have the high strikeout numbers, and maybe the ERA for the season for second half maybe falls into the mid 3s, high 3s ERA, and this is a beneficial trade for you. Ultimately, like nothing screams other than his fastball that something is seriously wrong. The fastball is a quick correction that hopefully they use a little AI to kind of adjust what he's doing wrong, because that's the key to making things better these days. So Dylan Cease is an acquire for me. Don't pay a premium whatsoever. Somebody is definitely kicking themselves in the butt because he was going as a top 24 pitcher and in some leagues top 12, and I wasn't drafting that high, but he's a guy that people paid a premium for. They're hurting. They need to leverage somebody, so you're going to be able to trade a guy that broke out that you may not have a second half that's going to feel fatigue. And before I let you hear how Dom feels on the matter, I am going to move on to a break here, but I will give you a preview of what's coming up. What to do with George Kirby? Are we acquiring him? Are we trading him away for pennies? Are we just dropping him? That's all coming up next. There's nothing better than catching an MLB game alive, which is true. The cracking of the bat, the roar of the crowd, the smell of the ballpark food. God, I love a ballpark dog. And if you're looking for go to the last minute game, go to Game Time. Makes getting tickets even easier, right? With last minute deals, all in one pricing, lowest prices guaranteed. Game Time takes the stress out of buying MLB tickets. Plus, ticket prices drop as game gets closer to game time, meaning you can score incredible deals, which I actually do all the time. I'm never sure. Hey, do I want to win a game? Do I want to go to a game? Okay, cool. I'm on my way down to the game. I'll buy the ticket on the road. Or hey, I'm from Philly, so I'm sitting at Xfinity. I feel like going to the game. I buy a ticket last minute. The deals are absolutely incredible. I get them right to my phone. It's great. And they also curate the tickets to me. Hey, here's the best deal in the park for the best seats. Boom, here you go. Game Time is absolutely incredible. I've been using it way before this show has even been a part of my life. So take the guesswork out of buying tickets at Game Time. Download the Game Time app today and create an account and use the code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off your first purchase. Terms again. Create an account, redeem the code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off your first purchase. Download Game Time today. Last minute tickets, lowest prices guaranteed. Hey, if you want a little bit more than what we offer this 30-minute podcast, become a member of the Insider Track. Don't miss out. Look, you want prospect call-ups. You want to know who to prioritize on the waiver wire. You want some key facts to highlight that you should be focusing on from every episode. You want to ask Dominic questions and get a response in the next 24 hours. You got to get on that Insider Track. Why not? And you get a free 2 weeks, so check it out. Links in the description below. But let's get back into it. Dylan Cease, you buying, you selling, you forgetting about him. What are we doing?
I still believe in Dylan Cease, and it might be to my own detriment. It might be to my own detriment at this point, but I do, right? And Matt, you touched on it. I think it could be just as simple as just messing with the repertoire. Like he totally switched up everything that he was doing last year that helped him be super successful, have one of the best seasons of his career. It might be simple as, taking a seat at the All-Star game, All-Star break, and working with the pitching coaches. They got some AI, all that kind of stuff out there. Matt, you also talking about just get everything right, get everything back on track to where he was last year. I don't think he finishes the season with the numbers he did last year, but could it be a 3.7 ERA with huge strikeout total and, like a 1.25 whip? I think that's where he probably finishes, around that number. So I do believe in Dylan Cease. Matt, I'm going to pass it to you, brother.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I'm all about it, but I will move on here. Somebody wanted to be a part of this show, hence why Dom had to pass it off, and that's fine. I'll move on, and I'll actually talk about our next guy here, George Kirby, playing for those Seattle Mariners. So Kirby here is somebody that I'm definitely trying to acquire. He's been terrible since returning from the injury and has just not been consistent for us. And that's kind of the key part, hey, why he's on this episode. So Kirby, we all know, if was healthy start the season, he would have been a top 10 pick. I actually had him ranked, I think, 6 overall at the position of starting pitcher. And, it's time that we kind of try and buy in. Last couple starts have been a little bit better. He's opened up the season pretty ugly. The one game that's really, really sticking out is the Angels. He went 7 innings, 14 Ks, and a 2.57 ERA. All of it's starting to turn around. Now, he's not going to be a cheap buy, okay? But he's going to be this is probably the last window where he's actually obtainable. And we wait all season. They're in a tough spot. You're going to have to give up multiple players to get him, though. This isn't like, hey, I could throw at an underperforming player. He's a guy on the upward trend. So what I'm actually doing is I'm not only going to trade a higher end player that has been overperforming, like a guy later in this episode. I'll give a little sneak preview, Seiya Suzuki. I'm also going to have to throw in another pitcher that's probably on the higher end that is going to have to pay up. Now, you were to tell me I give up Seiya Suzuki, who I drafted probably around pick 100, and who has been great. Don't get me wrong. And then I'm going to trade a mid-tier guy like a Casey Mize that I got off the waiver wires. That's a kind of a trade I'd probably float out there. Now, I might have to include more, but it would be a good starting point. A guy that's young, that's performing, and a guy that's been performing at over his britches, in my opinion. To go out and get George Kirby, I think is a good starting point. Being that he hasn't been healthy, the risk of the re-injury, the risk of hitting the IL again, on top of the unknown of can the fatigue kick in and things like that. These are the conversations that you're going to have. Kirby's worth the premium if he stays healthy. It does come with a risk of, unfortunately, but hey, the only time you lose is the time that you don't take your shots. Because if you would have had him and you're on the other side of that coin and he goes off and you could have had him, you missed out. So I'm going out there and I'm acquiring George Kirby at all costs if I can.
Yeah, man, I agree. I definitely think buy Kirby, but I'm gonna say this. I don't know if we do have to pay the premium. I think if the Kirby owner in your league is a savvy fantasy baseball player, yes, of course. But once again, I don't know if everybody's a savvy fantasy baseball owner. I know there's a lot more content out there today and a lot more information. I don't know if everyone utilizes it though, right? You might catch somebody because you know what the 14 strikeout game against the Angels Monsters. Followed it up 5 innings, 2 earned, 5 strikeouts. The whip was a 1.6. In his last one on the 14th against Cleveland. He gets Chicago next time out on the 20th, which is a better team. If he goes out there against Chicago and underperforms again, I think that window gets bigger. But if he does, this is why you want to buy now, though, because if he comes out there against Chicago and it's a 10 strikeout, 7 inning, gem, then that price is going to get crazy.
The thing about that, though, is with Kirby, we're forgetting he's not a K per inning guy. He's not a guy that's going to overwhelm the stat sheet with the strikeouts. He's very close to Sandy Alcantara in his prime, where he's an innings eater. You're going to get a lot of quality starts with George Kirby, where it makes him more valuable in a lot of points leagues, but even in roto and head-to-head, because he's going to pitch enough innings where he still has 200 strikeouts. It's just not coming in large quantities in games where it's like, oh my God, he just won me the week in strikeouts. No, he had a 2-start week. He went 7 innings in both and managed to get about 5 to 6 strikeouts in a single week between 2 starts. But that's consistent every week. That's what I like about George Kirby. So even if he goes out to the Cubs, has a 2.5 ERA or 3 ERA, and with 5 strikeouts through 7, I'm okay with that start. And that's where it's hard to go out and acquire George Kirby.
Oh no, of course, and I hear that. He's never been a major K per 9 guy, but I think we always believed in the upside because the stuff is legit.
Yeah.
Always pitched a little bit more to contact, and that was his thing. If he decided that he wanted to start missing bats and pitching, a little bit out of the zone here and there, get more swings and misses and whiffs, he had the upside to do it. But of course, I fully agree. I don't think he is eventually going to be that K per 9 guy. So even if he still pitches savvy and stuff like that, but we want to see the whip though too, because that's the thing. Kirby's the pinpoint control guy, always been very good with the whip. If he gets, like I said, if he goes out next time and it's a monstrous start, the price goes up. The price obviously goes down if it's a bad start, but that's why the window right now, I like it. I think it's a sweet spot. I think coming off of, the mediocre start against Cleveland, the first 3 starts of the season for him were bad. The ERA and the whip look ugly right now. So I think, like I said, unless you got a really savvy George Kirby owner, I think you'll make it out and be okay. But before we move in, we've taken a lot of time here on the first few names. Before we move into Tanner Bibee and finish up the buys and move into the sells like Brandon Lowe and more names coming up next. Got a quick break. And all right, guys, let's be real. Coffee isn't just a drink. It's a ritual, a lifeline, the thing that gets you from half asleep to fully functioning. And if that's essential, why settle for anything less than amazing? That's where Trade Coffee comes in. Trade is the #1 coffee destination in the U.S., delivering fresh, incredible coffee from over 50 of the country's top roasters. Whether you're a cold brew fan or a pure over purist, they've got a roast you'll love. The coffee was fresh, smelled amazing, and honestly, it ruined grocery store coffee for me in the best way. I love that their prices are comparable to grocery store brands, but the flavor is on a whole different level. Right now, Trade is exclusively offering our customers 50% off your 1-month trial at drinktrade.com/lockedonmlb. That's TARDE.com/lockedonmlb for 50% off your 1-month trial. And once again, that is drinktrade.com/lockedonmlb. And all right, guys, let's move into our last guy. Let's talk a little bit of Tanner Bibee. We'll try and keep this one short. With Tanner Bibee, I think it's simple. Just another starting pitcher that's underperformed this year, of the George Kirby type, where we know who he is. He's been pretty good so far in his career. The first 2 years, 142 innings of a 2.98 ERA in 2023, 3.47 ERA for 173 innings last year, and got that K per nine up to 173 innings, 187 strikeouts. So it was doing really good with that last year. Still only 26 years old. Has hit a little hard patch so far through his first 14 starts this year. 3.79 ERA, 80 innings, only 65 strikeouts, and a 1.21 WHIP. And now with Bibee, like I said, the kid's got really great stuff. Took that step forward last year, kind of, hitting that slump this year. Been a little bit better of late. He went out there last time. Wasn't awesome, but before that, six and a third against Houston on June 8th, 6 strikeouts, only 1 earned run, 0.79 WHIP. Was decent against the Yankees, gave up 3 earned in 6 and a third, 6 strikeouts, 0.95 WHIP. Against Detroit on May 22nd, which Detroit's one of the best teams in baseball, arguably the best. 7 innings, 8 strikeout, no earned runs, and 0.57 WHIP. Mixed in a couple of clunkers, here and there, but I think he's starting to figure it out. And this is a guy who, I know Matt and I loved him coming into the season, had him as like a top 24-ish, 30 guy. And if he can live up to 80% of that the rest of the way, you got yourself an arguable SP3 kind of guy. So low end SP3, high end SP4. So if you can go out there right now and acquire Bibee on the cheap on the season, like I mentioned, numbers don't look so great so far. The owner might be a little bit frustrated at the inconsistency. You're buying yourself one of the best young pitchers in the game, in my opinion, who could just literally turn it around from the rest of the way and literally be, like I said, top 24-ish starting pitcher. So go out there, buy Bibee. I'd pay up to 75 cents on the dollar, for Bibee at the moment, because I do believe he can turn it around for the rest of the season.
I think what we're seeing is a product of a pitch mix. So I look at what was successful last year, what was successful this year, and what has changed, right? Why are we seeing like a negative regression in certain aspects? Well, he's throwing the 4-seam fastball and not having is having better success than what he's had last year. Last year was a 282 batting average, now it's a 242. The cutter he's throwing a little bit less, significantly less, about 7% less. And this year it has a 244 batting average, whereas last year it was a 144. So that's a big change. The changeup last year he threw 18% of the time. It's now all the way down to 13, and he's thrown the sweeper a hell of a lot more, throwing that 17%, whereas he barely threw that at 6.5%. On top of that, he's mixed in the sinker a little bit more, throwing that 14% of the time versus literally like less than 1% last year. And that I think is the biggest one, the sinker. The sinker's getting hit at a 286, but the expected batting average is on a 219. Things are actually kind of coming to fruition. I think he's just trying to figure out how to mix in the pitch mixes, since the guy actually has a five really good pitches. And if he just starts figuring out what model he can build off last year and then bring it into this year, there's going to be a lot more positive stuff going on. And I think we're seeing that over the last month, where the ERA is down to like a 3. The strikeouts are, a little over a K per inning. The WHIP is down. Everything is kind of clicking. So if he could start figuring out what exactly needs to be, what pitch mix looks right for him and can make him successful, there's going to be a lot more for Tanner Bibee. So I'm definitely buying in. I think he is higher than, low end 3 or up, high end 4. He'll be that for your team, but he probably has, upside of being a SP2 at some point, because I really do believe in the talent. And if everything starts clicking, it's going to be fun. Let's move on, because we need to start moving a little faster. Brandon Lowe, or Lau, however we say this guy, of the Tampa Bay Rays, playing second base and outfield. He's having a season, right? But this is something we always talk about. When Lowe's healthy, he's great. When he's not healthy, he's just not on the field. He has 14 home runs through 262 at bats, 43 runs, 10 doubles, 39 ribs, and batting 263 on the season. He's looking great. Now, here's the thing. The likelihood of him staying healthy versus the likelihood of him, getting hurt is like, I don't know. It's going to be dark by 6 o'clock in the middle of the winter. I think that's the likelihood of him getting hurt. Brandon Lowe is just a guy that we need to trade now because the value is at its peak. He has been healthier than he's been in a very long time. He's looking stout. So let's trade that and kind of go guys that drafted Marcus Semien, guys that drafted other guys that are underperforming. Perfect guy to trade to those teams and get some serious returns. So trade Brandon Lowe whenever you can. I don't know his name.
I think it's Lau. I always get them mixed up. I think it's Lau. So over the last month for Brandon Lowe, 80, I was going to say his ownership percentage. He is hit 25 runs, 7 bombs, 15 RBIs, 337. The guy's been on fire. Matt, you broke it down pretty well. He hasn't played over 109 games, only more than once in his career. I know his last 2 seasons he's been a little bit healthier than normal, but he's 30 years old. He's getting up there. I'll preface this. If he's your only second baseman and you have nothing else, maybe hold, unless you're going to get a decent second baseman in the trade. Otherwise, if you have someone else that could play second, move on, get the value now. I don't think he'll be there when you need him most in the playoffs. Let's keep things pushing. Let's talk about somebody that's literally almost the same story, Max Muncy of the Los Angeles Dodgers. The guy's been hitting the cover off the baseball since he's returned from injury. On the season, he's actually up to a 242 batting average through 69 games played, 27 runs, 9 homers, 38 RBIs, 4 steals. I don't think Muncy's a guy who's going to stay healthy as well. Like I said, it's almost the same thing as Lau. And then the last month for Muncy, 303 batting average, 6 homers, 20 RBI, 16 runs, even 3 steals. Muncy's not a batting average kind of guy. He's not going to keep up this pace if he hits, if he holds this 240 batting average the rest of the way, you're going to be lucky. So like I said, get out under it. Third base has been a little bit better than third base has been a little bit sketchy too. So I mean, once again, if he's been your only guy at third, you have nothing else, maybe don't move on unless you can get something else in the haul. But I just don't think Muncy upkeeps this pace that he's been on for the last month for the whole season.
Yeah. No, I mean, Muncy is a guy that's nice to have, but hey, if I can get some better value, I will, because hey, he's pretty much a cruise at the end of the day, or no batting average and all power. Let's move on. I mentioned him at the top earlier in the show. Seiya Suzuki of the Chicago Cubs playing outfield. Look, he's been great. He's actually having a career year, but a career year at age 30 after being in the MLB since 2022, playing for the Cubs and not really showing off this kind of power that we saw when he was playing in Japan is kind of not something I could kind of, hang my hat on and say he's going to continue this pace all season. Now, is there a world where he finishes with 30 home runs? Sure. But, I mean, that's 12 more home runs for the rest of the season. That's a guy that, is good for season total numbers, but how much can he really keep up with this? I mean, the team is overperforming as well, but I mean, they're a good team, but this is just an unsustainable pace, and it's going to cool off at some point, and there's going to be negative regression. Rather sell at a peak value and a guy that everybody is believing in right now and get everything I need to fill up my team. This is only if you're in a position where you need to fill a lot of holes. If I'm in first place, in all honesty, and my team is chilling, or I'm in second place, I probably will ride this out, right? But if I'm in 4th, 5th, 6th, 7th, 8th, and I'm trying to either solidify my playoff position or I'm trying to get a playoff position, I have some holes to fill, Seiya Suzuki is the perfect guy to ship off. He didn't cost a lot. He is performing at an extremely high level, and a guy that, again, I don't believe in the pace. So I'm going to move him before the value starts dipping even a little bit. So I'm selling him wholeheartedly. As to what you can get for him, a lot. You could probably get any of the guys we mentioned at the top and then some. So go for it.
Matt, I'm with you, so I'm just going to agree and move on for time purposes. Let's talk about this next guy. Let's talk about Ryan Pepiot, starting pitcher of the Tampa Bay Rays. This kid had a career game last time out, 8 innings, 11 strikeouts, 1 earned run, an 0.75 whip. I like Pepiot, and I think he's a pretty good starting pitcher, but he is super, super inconsistent. Just go through his game log. Look through his game log through the whole season. He's a guy that, when it comes to playoff time, I don't know if he's going to be somebody that I just want locked in my rotation. I think while you're coming off of 3 monster strikeout games, and the numbers have looked better over his last 5 starts, and on the season, the numbers are starting to look really good now. Over 15 starts from Pepiot, 4 wins, 3.11 ERA, 110 WHIP, 89 innings, 84 strikeouts. I think, like I said, I think Pepiot's a good pitcher. I just don't think he's going to be consistent, and he's going to be there when you need him the most. So if you play in like a strictly like straight roto league where there's no playoffs and it's just whoever does the best categorically throughout the season, I might hold Pepiot in that kind of situation because the numbers will still look good at the end of the year. But I just don't know if I want to go into the playoffs trusting a guy like this on a week-to-week basis. So that's why I want to sell. I do like the talent though. So if it's not a great offer, I would hold.
Well, there's that, and also too, he's a big home run guy. He gives up a lot of home runs. He's playing in a smaller park. It's not like he has the protection of the Rays' original park and things like that. So there's just a lot more negatives. So if I could sell and capitalize and even make him like a piece that kind of pushes it over the finish line, I'll probably do it. Let him be a landmine on somebody else's team. Dynasty leagues, I'll probably hold, but keeper leagues, we only keep a certain amount of guys, or redraft leagues, he's totally a guy I'm full sending and I'm trading so that I can get the best and capitalize on that right now because he still has a sexy name to him. So well done, Dom. Guys, please like, subscribe, comment, rate, review, do everything you can to share this show because truly we love bringing it to you every day. So when you're done, check out our boy Sully over at Locked On MLB. Gives great MLB coverage on really what's going on around the league. So with that being said, guys, have a great rest of your day. Peace out.